This is Riju from Sportskeeda. I recently caught up with the star of the 83 Weeks podcast, Eric Bischoff, and you can check out snippets of our chat right here. I heard your podcast with Conrad where you praised the AJ Styles and Undertaker match at WrestleMania. Do you think that the cinematic match is the future of the business?
I don't know that it's the future of the business. I think it's a very valuable component. I think it's a special attraction. I think if it's done too much, it will lose some of its value to the audience. When everything becomes a cinematic style match, then it's no longer special. I think if the cinematic style matches are presented as a special event once a year or twice a year or in unique story-driven situations, I think it can become a very valuable part of the presentation. But I think to rely on them exclusively as a presentation would dilute and diminish their value.
What do you think of the recent alliance between All Elite Wrestling and Impact Wrestling? Do you think that's the way forward with companies working together against, you spoke about the underdog, against the big bad corporate world of WWE? Should the others band together?
I mean, I think it's working in the case of AEW and Impact. Both companies are gaining their respective benefit from the relationship. And anytime you have a situation where both companies are benefiting, then it's a win-win. Everybody goes home at the end of the night happy. Impact Wrestling is getting much more exposure. There are more people aware of Impact Wrestling now because of their relationship with AEW, because AEW has a much bigger national primetime television platform. Impact Wrestling is nowhere to be found. You have to search very, very hard to even find it on television. And they have a very small audience of 100 or 150,000 viewers, which is really nothing more than a YouTube show in terms of total viewership. But now with AEW and the exposure they're getting on TNT, which is a very successful and well-respected network, cable network with a large audience, in fact, is benefiting from that. AEW, I think, benefits because they have talent that they can bring in on occasion that is not a part of the regular programming, that's not a part of the regular storylines, and it allows you to kind of create some spontaneous stories and invasion-type stories and unique stories that you otherwise aren't able to create. So, like I said, it's a win-win for both companies, and I think that's great. I don't know that over the long term, it will be as successful as it is right now because it's new and it's different. But like anything in entertainment, whether it's movies or music or television or wrestling, once you've kind of seen it and you've been watching it for an extended period of time, it loses some of its luster. Only time will tell. And a lot of it has to do with how they use that relationship and what new ways they can come up with to present stories that keeps that relationship feeling fresh. I'm sure that they're capable of doing it. We just have to wait and see what that looks like.
On the other hand, Raw, in the light of declining ratings, hosted a Legends Night with Hogan and Flair and Tori Wilson. Do you think that going back to the well with Legends is a fix to the problem?
You know, this has been a discussion that I've been hearing or have taken part in over the last 30 years. When I first got into professional wrestling, a lot of the younger talent and certain wrestling fans would always complain about the older established talent getting too much TV time and too much recognition, and it's time for them to retire and time to let the new young talent, rise to the top. And every time that was ever attempted, it generally, over a period of time, failed. Because wrestling fans love the legends. Wrestling works in many respects because people grow up watching wrestling.
Right.
And they stick with the product. They start watching it as kids, they watch it into their early teens, they get into the late teens and early 20s, and they're going to college and they're developing relationships and they have other interests. They tend to go away from wrestling and stop watching for a while, but then they kind of come back in their mid to late 20s and early 30s, and then when they have kids, they watch wrestling with their kids. It's a generational type of programming, like probably nothing else other than sports.
Right.
And because it's generational, and because people have been watching most of their lives, there'll always be a place, in my opinion, for legends and older stars. I mean, it's funny. You know, when I was doing a podcast with Conrad recently, he said that a dirt sheet writer, you know, complained because at 41 years old, you know, Ric Flair was too old. 41 years old, that's prime, you know, right now. Right. I mean, AJ Styles is older than 41. Chris Jericho's 50.
Right.
I mean, and he's at the top of his game in many respects. He may not be at the top of his game physically, but as a performer and as a character, he's far and away at the top of his game. So there will always be a place for older talent. The key is to find a way to balance it so that the younger talent who's associated with that established talent, like Bill Goldberg or like Sting or like Ric Flair, you associate them with the younger talent, and the younger talent benefits from that association. They become bigger stars as a result of their proximity to legends and more recognized talent. But it's all about balance. But there'll always be a place, in my opinion, for older talent. And if you look at, you know, the 18 to 49-year-old demo, most recently on Monday Night Raw last week, they had one of the best shows ever.
Right.
Well, not ever, but in a very long time.
Yes.
In that 18 to 49-year-old demo, because that demo wants to go back and see that talent that they grew up with or watched when they were in their 20s and 30s. So it'll always work. I think it's, again, not to be redundant, but it's just about balance. Please, you can find me wherever you get your favorite podcasts, 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, and definitely want to invite the listeners to adfreeshows.com. There's a plethora, I love using that word, a plethora of great talent and great content over at adfreeshows.com. Myself, Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross, Arn Anderson, just a ton of great talent. We've got some new content that we do every single week. We're producing new content, as well as your ability to listen to the podcast without having to listen to any of the ads. So either adfreeshows.com, or if you want to listen to the podcast, 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, wherever you get your favorite podcast.